The kitchen smelled of garlic and rosemary, the kind of scent that usually brings me comfort. I moved around the stove, stirring, tasting, adjusting, my little rituals to stay grounded after a long day. Then my phone buzzed on the counter, cutting through the calm like a cold draft. I dried my hands on a towel and picked it up, already bracing myself. Working late tonight. Big meeting with the directors. The words glowed on the screen, neat and sterile, almost rehearsed. I read them twice and my chest tightened, not from shock, but from the dull ache of familiarity. It was the same excuse I'd heard so many Fridays before. A bitter laugh almost escaped me, but I pressed my lips shut, holding it in like a secret. I set the phone face down, as if that could block out the truth buried in those lines. The kitchen clock ticked steadily, every second reminding me of how far we'd drifted. I stirred the pot again, forcing myself to focus on the rising steam, the scrape of the spoon against the pan. But deep down, unease curled inside me, whispering what I didn't want to admit. I tried to silence it, tried to believe him, but the whisper wouldn't go away. I leaned against the counter, spoon still in my hand, staring at the phone like it might confess more than the message it held. Part of me wanted to believe him. Mark was ambitious, always chasing promotions, always talking about late-night meetings. But another part of me, the quieter, sharper part, knew when something didn't add up. That part had been restless for months. The house felt too big when he wasn't there, every creak of the floorboards reminding me I was alone in more ways than one. I tried to shake it off, focusing on the simmer of the pan, the sound of bubbling sauce. Dinner for two had become dinner for one so many times lately that setting an extra plate felt like theater, a performance for a man who rarely showed up. I poured myself a glass of wine, the red liquid catching the kitchen light like a secret I couldn't name. "Big meeting with the directors," I muttered, letting the words roll off my tongue like a bad joke. My stomach knotted tighter, but I forced a deep breath, telling myself not to spiral. If I let suspicion take root, it would consume me. At least, that's what I thought then. I carried the wine glass to the table and sat down, staring at the empty chair across from me. It felt almost mocking, the way it stood there, waiting, expectant, as if daring me to keep pretending everything was fine. I thought back to when Mark and I first moved in, when dinner meant laughter, shared stories, and stolen kisses before dessert. Now, it was silence and excuses typed out in sterile words. I pushed food around my plate, appetite fading with every bite. The truth is, I'd been making peace with small absences for months. His distracted eyes, his rushed goodbyes, the way his phone never left his side. I told myself it was just work, just stress, just life getting in the way. But deep down, I was keeping a tally, even when I didn't admit it. And tonight, that tally felt heavier than ever. I drained the last sip of wine, the warmth spreading through me doing little to soften the cold creeping in. Something wasn't right. I could feel it in my bones, the way you feel a storm before the sky even darkens. Still, I clung to the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, I was wrong. But as the night stretched on, I had no idea how close I was to being exposed to the truth I'd been avoiding. After cleaning up the dishes, I sank into the couch, phone in hand, trying to distract myself. Scrolling through Instagram had become my way of filling the silence, a small escape from the ache of waiting. My thumb hovered lazily, stopping on a local bar's live stream. I tapped it without much thought, expecting nothing more than background chatter, the kind of noise that makes you feel less alone. The screen lit up with dim lighting, clinking glasses, and bursts of laughter echoing through my living room. I smirked faintly at a group of friends singing off-key in the corner, their joy so far removed from the heaviness sitting in my chest. It was supposed to be harmless, just strangers living their lives while I tried to forget the hollowness of mine. But then the camera shifted, panning across tables with the lazy curiosity of whoever was filming. My stomach tightened as my eyes followed along, and in the next second, the air left my lungs in one brutal rush. There he was, Mark. Sitting at a candlelit table, his hand tangled with a blonde woman's, his smile wide and unguarded. The kind of smile I hadn't seen directed at me in months. For a moment, I froze, phone clutched in my hand as if I'd misread the scene. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears, drowning out the voices coming from the stream. I blinked, hoping the image would shift, that maybe it was just a trick of the camera. But no, there was Mark, leaning in close, his thumb brushing across her knuckles like it was the most natural thing in the world. Rage shot through me so fast it burned, a fire racing up my spine. I felt my chest tighten, my face grow hot, and yet beneath the fury was something colder, an ache so sharp it nearly buckled me. Months of suspicion, months of excuses, all crashing into one undeniable moment playing out live for the world to see. And there he was, my husband, acting as if I didn't exist. The comments scrolled across the bottom of the screen, people laughing, cheering, noting how cute the couple looked. My hands trembled as I gripped the phone, anger flooding every corner of me. Cute? Charming? No. What they were seeing wasn't romance. It was betrayal caught on camera, and I was the unwilling witness. I couldn't look away. Every gesture felt like a knife, twisting deeper with each second. The way he leaned toward her, whispering something that made her laugh. The way his eyes softened, eyes that had turned cold when they looked at me. It wasn't just a fling across a crowded bar. It was intimacy. Intimacy he'd stripped from me and handed to someone else. My grip tightened on the phone until my knuckles turned white. The room around me blurred, and all I could see was them. Mark and that woman, their little world captured in perfect clarity, while mine collapsed in silence. It wasn't just betrayal, it was exposure. He wasn't hiding in some shadowy corner. He was out in the open, unashamed, as if his double life deserved applause. And something shifted in me. The hurt was still there, raw and jagged, but it hardened into something sharper. If Mark thought he could humiliate me live for strangers to watch, then he had no idea what I was capable of. My heart was breaking. Yes, but it was also building something stronger, something that wouldn't just endure, but strike back. My hands shook as I hit the call button, the screen glowing with his name. Each ring felt like a drumbeat against my chest, louder and heavier as the seconds dragged on. No answer. I tried again, this time biting down on the inside of my cheek, hoping the vibration in his pocket would jolt him back to reality. Still nothing. The silence on the other end was deafening, louder than any excuse he could have given me. I stared at the screen, my reflection faint against the black glass, and something inside me cracked. He wasn't ignoring a call. He was ignoring me. All of me. The woman who'd built a home with him, cooked meals for him, waited through countless late nights. That rejection, that deliberate silence, cut deeper than the sight of him with her. It was proof. Proof I was no longer a part of his world. My breath came in sharp bursts, but then it steadied, cooling like metal hardening in fire. I tapped the record button, capturing every second of the live stream. His smile, his touch, her laughter. If he thought he was untouchable, he was wrong. I wouldn't just be the humiliated wife watching from the sidelines. I'd be the one holding the evidence, the one rewriting the ending to this little show of his. I lowered the phone slowly, my fingers still tingling from gripping it so hard. The video continued streaming, showing him laughing, leaning closer, his hand gliding over hers like he had nothing to fear. He was so confident, so careless, and that made my anger burn hotter. Did he really believe I'd never find out? That my silence meant blindness? I replayed every moment in my head. The excuses, the late nights, the sudden distance. All the little red flags I had buried because I wanted to believe in us. In him. But now, here was the truth, unfolding right in front of me, live for anyone to see. And instead of crumbling under the weight of it, I felt myself rising. The tears that had threatened a moment ago, gone, replaced by clarity. My thumb hovered over the screen, recording every intimate second, every stolen gesture. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about exposure. He had turned our marriage into a stage, and tonight, I wasn't the victim in the shadows. I was the witness with the power to turn the spotlight on him. And I knew, with bone-deep certainty, that I would. I leaned back into the couch, the glow of the phone lighting up my face in the dark room. My heart was still racing, but it wasn't panic anymore. It was precision. Each beat steadied me, like a drum rolling into war. He thought he was untouchable, untamed, free to play this game behind a curtain of lies. But now, I had the curtain pulled wide open, and he didn't even know it yet. The live stream showed him raising his glass, clinking it against hers, grinning like a man without consequences. I zoomed in, capturing every detail, the candlelight flickering across his smug expression, the way her hand rested on his arm like she belonged there. Every second I recorded felt like a strike against him, a ledger filling with proof he could never erase. And as I sat there, breathing steady, I made a silent vow. If he wanted to humiliate me live, I would answer in kind. Not by shouting, not by begging, not by crumbling, but by making sure that one single moment, the moment he realized I was watching, would haunt him more than any word I could ever say. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, the weight of every unsent word pressing down on me. I could have written 1,000 things, pleas, curses, demands, but none of them felt right. He didn't deserve my confusion, my pain, or even my questions. He deserved fear. Plain and sharp, fear that would crawl into his skin and stay there. So I typed the only sentence that mattered. I know where you are. I'm watching you right now. Don't you dare come back home tonight. The moment I hit send, a rush of heat pulsed through me, part fury, part liberation. My hands trembled, not from weakness, but from the surge of control I hadn't felt in so long. I wasn't invisible anymore. I wasn't the silent wife waiting at home while he lived his second life. No, I had just stepped into the game, and for the first time, he wasn't the one holding the pieces. I flicked my eyes back to the live stream, pulse hammering as the camera caught him glancing at his phone under the table. His face changed instantly, his smile faltering, his hand stiffening around the glass. There it was, the crack in his perfect act. Watching his eyes widen, watching the color drain from his expression, it was like witnessing a mask shatter in real time. The blonde leaned toward him, her brows furrowed, clearly confused by the sudden shift in his mood. He yanked his hand away from hers, fumbling to set his phone down as if the message had burned him. I could almost hear his mind racing, calculating, panicking. That confident grin he wore so easily just minutes ago? Gone, replaced by a nervous twitch in his jaw and a stiffness in his posture that gave him away completely. I sipped from the glass of water on the table beside me, the irony not lost on me. He thought he could toy with me, live freely in his betrayal, and keep me in the dark. But here he was, exposed, unraveling, while I sat calmly in my living room with the upper hand. For once, it wasn't me waiting for his excuses. It was him, sweating under the weight of my silence, knowing I was out there, watching. The live comments lit up with questions. What's wrong with that guy? He looks like he's seen a ghost. A few people even dropped laughing emojis, amused by his sudden change. I let a smile creep across my lips. They didn't know the truth, but he did. That's what mattered. The world thought he was cracking for no reason. But I was the reason, and that felt like the sweetest justice. I leaned forward, phone still in hand, watching every flicker of panic spread across his face. He kept shifting in his seat, pretending to laugh at something the blonde said, but his eyes betrayed him. They darted to the phone, then to the door, then back to the camera as if he knew, deep down, that somewhere out there, I was watching his downfall play out live. The blonde reached for his hand again, but this time he pulled back completely, his fingers trembling against the tablecloth. She looked puzzled, annoyed even, but I didn't care about her confusion. My focus was on him, the man unraveling in real time, his performance cracking under the weight of a single message. He could charm her all he wanted, but he couldn't charm his way out of the truth sitting in his pocket. As the comments poured in, mocking his sudden stiffness, I felt a wave of satisfaction wash over me. It wasn't just revenge. It was balance being restored. For every night he left me alone, every excuse, every hollow smile, I now had this moment. A moment he'd never erase, never forget, because from here on, every time his phone buzzed, he'd wonder if it was me pulling the strings again. Mark never came home that night. Not the next one either. The silence of the house, once so suffocating, felt different now. Liberating almost. I changed the locks the following morning, sliding the new keys into my pocket with a calm I hadn't felt in years. The man who once believed he owned this space no longer had a claim to it. For the first time in a long while, the house felt like mine again. I sat with a lawyer 2 days later, papers spread neatly across the table. My voice didn't waver as I recounted the excuses, the lies, the betrayal caught in the glow of a live stream. The lawyer nodded, scribbling notes, her eyes sharp with understanding. This wasn't just a divorce, it was a severing of chains. Every signature I planned to make was a step toward reclaiming myself, toward rewriting the ending he thought he controlled. As for the blonde, she disappeared as quickly as she appeared. I wasn't surprised. Mistresses rarely stay when the promises of power and money crumble. And crumble they did. His world, our world, was unraveling piece by piece, and I didn't need to lift another finger to make it happen. He was exiling himself, destroying himself, while I stood steady on the other side of the fire. Nights used to feel endless, spent waiting for the sound of his car in the driveway, wondering what excuse would fall from his lips this time. Now I filled them differently. Dinners with friends, long baths where I let the silence feel like peace instead of punishment. I laughed more, louder than I had in years, and every burst of joy felt like a reclamation of the woman I had once buried beneath his lies. The neighbors whispered, "Of course. People always do when marriages crumble in public." But their looks didn't sting me the way I thought they would. If anything, I let them. Let them gossip, let them speculate, because for once, I wasn't the one hiding. I had nothing to be ashamed of. The shame belonged to him, stamped across his face that night on camera, a humiliation he couldn't edit or erase. Even the quiet moments felt different. Cooking dinner, I no longer stared at an empty chair across from me with dread. Instead, I plated food for myself, savoring each bite like an act of defiance. The wine tasted better, the nights felt warmer, and the air in the house finally belonged to me. I wasn't waiting anymore. I was living. A week later, I walked into that same bar, the one where I'd first seen his betrayal unfold. This time, I wasn't alone. Friends surrounded me, laughter spilling from our table like music, glasses clinking under the warm glow of hanging lights. I wasn't hiding behind a screen or holding my breath for his excuses. I was present, alive, and finally free. At one point, I caught my reflection in the bar's window. I didn't look broken. I looked steady, certain, even a little dangerous in the way a woman looks when she's taken back her power. I scrolled through my phone casually, pausing on another venue's live video. Strangers laughing, couples leaning close, But for the first time, none of it made my chest tighten. I was unbothered, untouchable. As I set my phone down, a smile tugged at my lips. He had ignored my calls that night, but he would never ignore the moment he realized I was watching. That memory belonged to him now, etched in panic across his face, seared into the shame he carried. And me? I was done carrying anything that wasn't mine.